Welcome back. Today we're going to look at weight loss and its relationship to fitness and nutrition. I'm going to concentrate on those of us who want to lose a moderate amount of weight, let's say around the range of 10 to 30 pounds, or those who simply wish to maintain their already healthy weight. I won't get into the area of severe obesity, also known as morbid obesity, because those who want to or need to lose 100 pounds or more should be under the care of a physician and a professional dietitian. The guidelines and safety issues for that kind of weight loss are not the same as in moderate weight loss. For more detailed information specifically on severe obesity, let me refer you to my lectures on lifelong health. First, I want to talk about a group of myths around weight loss as opposed to healthy weight maintenance that have grown together in the minds of many people. These are myths perpetuated by anecdotal evidence, which in the world of medical science we like to call the big lie. Remember, again, when we're dealing with pseudoscience, especially from people who would like to sell us something, a book or a program or a supplement to improve our health, the number of anecdotes or testimonials is totally irrelevant regarding the quality of the product. I'm sure you've all seen or read ads where individuals claim to have lost tons of weight in a short period of time by taking a certain pill or supplement and then watching the fat melt away. Just remember, 1,000 anecdotes is as useless as one anecdote. Anecdotes and testimonials are not scientific data, and the commercial diet world is overflowing with them because so many people struggle with maintaining a healthy or cosmetically approved weight. So let's start at the top of the list of myths. Anyone can lose weight and keep it off. Don't I wish? So the bad news. Statistics indicate that 95% of people who lose weight in the short term, say over a period of 4 to 6 months, will be back at their pre-diet weight by the end of the first year. The good news is that if you're strongly motivated, focused, and determined, you can lose the excess weight without feelings of constant deprivation. And you can keep it off. It isn't complicated. You just have to learn to pay attention to your body, to the science, and to the whole way of living and eating rather than to fad diets for quick fixes. Let's look at some of the data from the United States National Weight Control Registry about what successful people did to keep weight off after they lost it. In the population they studied, the main technique for 98% of successful dieters was to make major changes in total food intake. Additionally, 94% increased their physical activity as well, and for most of them, this meant simply walking more. The group trying to lose weight lost an average of 66 pounds and kept it off for more than 5 years. The majority of the people in this group reported eating breakfast every day, weighing themselves regularly at least once a week or more, watching fewer than 10 hours of TV a week, and exercising about an hour a day. Note the moderation and the consistency, not deprivation. Here's another myth that ties right in. We can control and improve our weight by either piling up on or entirely eliminating one of the 3 main macronutrient food groups: fats, protein, or carbohydrates. This is completely wrong, and you'll know it right away because there's no balance, and your body will tell you so. For instance, there are some diets that suggest entirely eliminating carbohydrates as a way to lose weight. The idea comes from the fact that simple, fast-acting carbohydrates such as white breads, candies, and juices all have a high glycemic index, and they can lead to weight gain. That's true, but the complex, slow-acting carbohydrates, vegetables, and whole grains aid digestion and are important sources of fiber and nutrition. Again, it's all about balance and proportion and quality. When you have a moment, check out one of the mega bookstores or go online to any of the giant booksellers' websites, and you'll get a rough idea of the number of books on sale for weight loss dieters. One site I went to had over 50,000 references, and a large bookstore I visited had more than 300 books on dieting alone. Here's something to think about. If even one of those many books really worked in the long term for the majority of people, we would all be reading that book. We would all be using that diet, but we're not. That tells you something important about all the new fads. Most of those diets are non-scientific nonsense. Also, there are hundreds of published diets out there which tout loading up on carbs or proteins and ditching fats, for example. There's absolutely no science to back these fads or other kinds of fad diets as well. At best, some of these diets are harmless, but many are not. Some are very risky. The small grain of truth underlying so many of these so-called miracle diets is that it is possible to lose some weight very quickly in the first few weeks or months. But that early weight loss often comes merely as water loss, which occurs most often in the low carbohydrate diets, which, by the way, are very unbalanced and very unhealthy ways of eating, in which you cannot safely sustain over the long run. So by going to extremes, you may make yourself very unhappy and probably very unhealthy as well. So now let's move away from the myth of unbalancing the macronutrients as a way to lose weight and look at some of the simple, undeniable science. First, and most important, a calorie is a calorie. It makes no difference what food group that calorie comes from. Whether it's from fat, carbohydrate, or protein, they're all the same for whatever the body wants to do with them. Evolution has given our bodies complete discretion on how it will deal with fuel. It breaks down everything into smaller molecules and then reassembles them exactly into what it needs at the moment. You have no say in what the body does with the calories you feed it. So reducing fat, for example, doesn't mean that the body will selectively lose fat as well. Secondly, permanent stable weight loss and weight gain are not matters of complicated calculus or quadratic equations. You don't need a 400-page diet book with tables and charts. Caloric balance is simply a matter of subtraction and addition. If you eat more calories than you burn, you will gain weight. If you burn more calories than you eat, you will lose weight. Period. That alone could be enough information for the whole lecture. But let's look a little closer by talking about another myth. We just need a little willpower in the amount of food we consume, and we can weigh whatever we want to. It's not that simple. Throughout millions of years of evolution, the greatest survival threat to virtually all organisms was not death at the hands of a predator, being killed and eaten by a four-legged predator, for example. It was not death by flood or by fire or by drought. It was not death by infection, disease, or broken bones, or even tribal wars. Of course, all of these were definitely threats to survival, and evolution selected the mechanisms that would give the organism, you and me in this case, the best odds to survive and to spread our genes to the next generation. The biggest threat of all, over eons of time, and still sadly in some parts of the world even today, was and is starvation. So whether we like it or not, our bodies are armed with powerful genes and internal signals and metabolic mechanisms that kick in as soon as our bodies detect anything that suggests we might be headed for a starvation situation. And that means our body's regulatory mechanisms will detect even the slightest decrease in caloric intake or slightest loss of weight. And then it will resist it as if our lives depended upon it. Because for millions of years, it did. The two strongest reactions by the body are, first, the sensation of hunger and the consequent very strong drive to eat something, anything, to satisfy that hunger. Jonathan Swift, the author who wrote Gulliver's Travels, said, "He was a bold man that first ate an oyster." Well, that man wasn't just bold, he was hungry. The second mechanism in our body's drives to stave off starvation, our metabolic gears will naturally downshift to burning fewer calories in order to maintain a stable weight. Most of us have experienced the initial weight loss when we reduce calories. Then we find that the weight loss tapers off after a week or so, and then if we drop the calories some more, we lose a bit more weight, and then that too tapers off. It's very frustrating. This is more complicated physiologically, but in simplest terms, our bodies reset the internal thermostat, lowering our metabolism so that our internal energy furnaces burn slower and slower to keep us from losing weight, or from a purely physiological perspective, to prevent starvation. The exact resetting is very variable, but we can foil that mechanism by moving and forcing the body to work harder, so that the calories in and the calories out equation will help us in the weight loss department. The challenge to lose weight and maintain that weight loss revolves around how we can bypass those strong survival instincts and still remain healthfully lean and strong, and hopefully joyful as well. I say joyful because this can and should be a lifelong work in progress, and the element of joy will make it sustainable. Before I get specific, let's look at the big picture. Let's just forget about the whole concept of dieting as it's defined by our society as a way to lose weight and as a short-term cure for what's really a lifelong issue. You may have heard me say this before, but it bears repeating. We want to think of the Greek origin of the word, which is diaita, meaning a way of living, and in our context, also a way of eating. This very critical concept encompasses our whole relationship with food well beyond calories and nutrition, and focuses on balance and on how and when and with whom we eat. In reality, we just need a healthy framework that we can build on so that we can eat moderately, healthfully, and joyfully for the next 20 or 50 or 75 years without a continuous feeling of hunger and of frustration. Once we build that framework, then we ask ourselves, how does it feel, how does it fit, and how does it go within our overall fitness program? Which leads me to the next myth. We can use exercise alone to achieve weight loss. So after we devour a delicious bacon cheeseburger and fries, we can go to the gym and work it off. Again, I only wish that were true. Let's look at this one carefully. Let's say we want to lose about 1 pound a week. Not an unreasonable goal to start with. 1 pound of energy in our body comes from an average of about 3,500 calories, or if it's pure fat we want to lose, then it's 454 grams in a pound times 9 calories per gram of fat, which equals roughly 4,000 calories. And of course, we would rather burn off the fat. So that's 4,000 calories to burn a week to lose 1 pound of fat per week. So now how many calories do we burn when we're actively moving our body? Well, this will vary a great deal, but just let's look at the average adult male who weighs about 155 pounds and does 30 minutes of moderate to vigorous exercise, which happens to be the amount of time most people devote to aerobic exercise in a given workout, generally 3 times a week. The approximate calories burned in 30 minutes of a few common activities are a brisk walk, 4 miles per hour, typical treadmill pace, will burn about 160 calories in that 30 minutes. Running 5 miles per hour, an 11-minute mile, which isn't too fast, about 335 calories over 30 minutes. Rowing machine, a moderate pace, a light load, 260 calories. Stationary biking, 225 calories. Tennis, about 260 calories. Swimming, 223 calories. 3 times a week of these very common activities leads to about 600 to 900 calories burned per week, not per day, per week. Those extra calories burned will help you to lose about 1/4 pound a week. A half-pound bacon cheeseburger with fries and a milkshake could contain 2,000 to 3,500 calories. Exercising the next day won't make a dent. I'm not trying to deter anyone from exercise. There are so many positive aspects about our overall health and happiness regarding regular exercise that I could use up the next 3 lectures on that alone. Burning off an extra 1/4 pound a week will add up over the long term, but it will not balance out regular eating binges. So yes, keep at it. Keep moving. There's absolutely no question that exercise is the single most effective way to establish and maintain a long and healthy life, both physically and mentally. Exercise can stave off cognitive mental decline, as well as free us from crippling diseases such as arthritis. Moving your body by itself might be the most important single factor in a healthy lifestyle. And combined with a healthy, moderate way of eating, it will serve you best throughout your lifetime. But if you want to use exercise at this relatively average intensity and frequency, it's not likely to pay the dividends you want with regard to losing weight in the short term. On the other hand, there are very few things that will give you as much bang for the buck as a regular, joyful, sustained episode of body movement. More on that in a minute. For now, just remember that the number of calories you're able to burn in any given period of exertion is relatively small, and in some people can actually stimulate the appetite in our body's effort to stave off any further kind of weight loss. So why bother? Can we use exercise to lose weight? And just as important, can you use exercise to maintain weight loss? What does the science say? In a huge study run by Harvard, more than 34,000 women were observed over a period of 13 years, and their dietary habits and weight loss were measured and tracked. Now, this is a big, long-term study. These women averaged about 54 years old at the beginning of the study, so they were in their mid to late 60s at the end of the study. Most of the women over that 13 years gained weight on the average of about 6 pounds, but some gained a lot more. However, there was a subgroup of women in the study who maintained their body weight over that period of time. Most of the women in this leaner group exercised at a very moderate level every day for about an hour or so. This amounted to not much more than walking at a moderately brisk pace or other forms of similar moderate exercise. But they had done it for many years and started out with lower body weights. In another study on women, this one with a very restrictive, unsustainable diet, 800 calories a day, that's nearly a starvation diet. These women all lost weight, no surprise. But those in the group that were also on an exercise program tended not to revert to their pre-diet weight once they went back to a more normal way of eating. Those who did not exercise did regain the weight. Interesting and unexplained so far was the fact that the new weight gain in this non-exercising groups was distributed mostly around their waists. We know this is a particularly unhealthy place to have extra weight because it's apparently more metabolically active and associated with a higher incidence of coronary artery disease. With these studies on human, plus many other studies on laboratory animals, there seems to be a definite correlation and benefit between the maintenance of weight loss through exercise rather than the loss of weight through exercise alone. Once you get the weight off, no matter how you do it, the most constant theme is that the people who keep on moving tend to maintain that weight loss. The sedentary people don't. The really good news is that much of this benefit can be achieved with fairly modest but consistent levels of exertion. In fact, one study on humans showed that merely standing up for long periods of time without doing any hard exercise increased the amount of energy expended and contributed to a small but statistically significant weight loss. Another key point to remember is that muscle burns more calories at rest than fat does. So the higher muscle to fat ratio, the easier it is to burn calories too. How much does it help? It's way too variable from person to person and activity to activity to give you an actual number. So just keep moving and think about including some weight training. The takeaway from this is that we really should not be trying to separate fitness and nutrition when it comes to maintaining or achieving a healthy weight. Now let's look at another myth regarding not just how much we eat, but when we eat. The myth tells us it matters when you choose to eat your calories. One popular idea is that if you eat before going to bed or late at night, you will gain weight. This is definitely a myth. Many well-done scientific studies have shown that it makes absolutely no difference in the long run what time of day you take in your calories. From another perspective, however, there's also a possibility that there is a kernel of truth in this food timing myth. Having just said that you cannot time your food intake to minimize weight gaining, let's look at a study from 2010. I would have until recently been the first one to say that you just can't fool Mother Nature with this timing idea, but in a small but very well done study, researchers in Belgium seem to be suggesting something else. At least in one very short-term study, it seems that it may be better to exercise in the morning in a fasting state before any breakfast at all if you want to lose recent weight gain and stave off some of the dangerous side effects of overeating. The researchers took a small number of healthy male athletes, ages 18 to 24 years old, and divided them into 3 groups. All 3 groups ate what the researchers called a hypercaloric, fat-rich diet for 6 weeks. This included a huge 30% increase to their usual total calories, with 50% of these calories coming from fat. Very, very unhealthy. But remember that these were young, very well-trained, healthy athletes, and this diet was not a normal part of their lives. One group exercised 4 mornings a week at very high intensity for either 60 or 90 minutes at a time after an 8 to 10 hour fast. This group ate only after exercising. The second group ate before exercising and also drank sports drinks with carbohydrates during exercising. Both groups did the same intensity workout and ate the same total amount of calories during the day, except the fasting group, they took their calories only after they worked out. The third group, the control group, had the same diet but did no exercise at all. So in this control group of experimental couch potatoes, remember this was not their normal lifestyle, by the way, they gained about 6 pounds in the 6 weeks. No surprise there. They became insulin resistant and fat tended to accumulate inside and outside their muscle cells. Both of these conditions, insulin resistance and fatty muscles, are very unhealthy in the long term. The second group of exercisers who did eat before and during the exercise gained about 3 pounds, half as much as the controls. They too had some impaired insulin and carbohydrate metabolism and some fatty deposition inside their cells. Only the first group of fasting exercisers maintained a healthy level of glucose metabolism and muscle maintenance with almost no weight gain. Training after a significant fast, 8 to 10 hours, was much more protective of critical metabolic processes in people with short-term unhealthy nutrition than eating before and during exertion. Remember that this is a very early kind of research. It is a small study and it revolves around a very specific kind of bad diet and intense exercise program for a very short period of time. In addition, the protection for the fasting group came through very high intensity training for long periods of time, 60 to 90 minutes, 4 days a week, much more intense than the average person could be expected to do. So far, there's no data to show how this would work in the general population and whether lower levels of, say, mild aerobic training with a moderate ways of eating would produce the same effect under these fasting conditions. Don't take this as a license for binge eating and then binge exercising. Both are likely to be unhealthy over time. And also, let's not confuse this with another lecture in which I suggested eating about 200 calories an hour or two before exercise. There I was referring to maximizing performance, not efforts to lose weight as I am here. My personal takeaway would be that if I can exercise in the fasting state, especially on days I was going to do high intensity interval training, or at least at the upper end of my intensity range of workouts, I would try to do it before breakfast. Speaking of how we move our bodies, let's look at our next myth. It's possible to reduce fat selectively in specific areas of the body. In a word, there's absolutely nothing you can do to remove unwanted fat from specific areas of your body, period. This is one place where your instincts are probably right. Most people who pay attention notice that they tend to accumulate extra fat in specific areas of their bodies, and that area is where the fat is the last to go after losing weight and the first to return when you gain weight. Everybody's head should be nodding now. This is the very nature of your individuality, and you just have to learn to live with it. That hanging flesh or flap under your upper arms will not go away with triceps exercise. Neither will your abdominal paunch, or mine, go away after you've done 10,000 crunches. Fat distribution is encoded in your DNA. Don't waste your time or emotion on trying to change that. Just maintain a healthy body mass index, weight, and enjoy your body movement. And don't waste another minute or another dollar on rubber suits or focal exercise programs aimed at spot reduction. There is no such thing. So as we conclude this lecture, let's take a minute to highlight the important points. First, losing weight is all about calories eaten and calories burned. To lose weight successfully, you'll need to burn more and eat less. And you'll have to keep on moving your body. Secondly, don't waste your time and money on the newest fad diet and the huge number of unscientific exercise myths such as spot reduction. Third, don't try to time how and when to eat. Timing probably won't get you anywhere. Fourth, stick to the science and not the anecdotes. And finally, don't forget to make use of the professionals out there before making major changes to diets or exercise routines. This is all about a lifelong pursuit of health and happiness. It's far easier to develop those healthy ways of eating and moving that will meld together and keep you fit for life than to torture yourself for short-term gains. Find a way to move your body that's fun and something you can look forward to. Keep it light and keep it joyful. Thank you.